south side of the building. You'll come into that secure vestibule where you can enter right into the administration suite. We have windows along the administration suite also that provide some active and passive observation of who's coming and who's going from the building. You come into that commons cafeteria space, and again, you can go to the west is kind of the pre-K, kindergarten, some of your special education rooms, Head Start, and then really to the east is the 1 through 4 with some of the flex classrooms as well located over that area. The media center and the music rooms stay centrally located right off the gymnasium, utilizing some of the space that's existing for the media center. And really, you know, it's a total renovation of the existing facility, new infrastructure, new finishes, basically upgrading everything to really bring it into the current model.
All right, so again, you know, the same issues in the South Campus are the focus of that slide, and so being that that's a brand new school and it's on a greenfield site, there are some things certainly that we're able to do there that we can't do on an addition site. I think the addition works really well with the double lake. It fits really well into the existing building there, and it separates the younger students from the older students in ways that make sense. So using that existing circulation, existing infrastructure with that North Campus building works really well. At the South Campus, we're doing many of the same things that you see at the North Campus. And having that be on a new site, I think one of the things that is important to note with the Hoffman site is that the Hoffman site that has been proposed is 12 acres. The existing site at Kensington, that building's on 2.5 acres, which is very, very small. It could be expanded maybe to 4 acres with the acquisition of some adjacent properties, but it's a very small site. And so having the space available for outdoor activities and for playgrounds, and having adequate space for the student population that would use that building, I think 12 acres makes a lot of sense. It gives you room potentially for some outdoor athletic fields with that site as well, and for some outdoor physical education spaces. So.
So, sorry, we did miss these slides. So these are just some potential what this building could look like, how it interacts with the existing facility. You can see the existing facility is kind of this darker gray roof and the kind of wrap around that south and west side, or southeast side. So this site at south is a greenfield site, as Brian mentioned. Very similar attributes where you come in the main vestibule to a secure entry with the admin offices right off there, providing some of that passive and active security. Coming into your commons, which your gymnasium is right off the commons, as well as your core space with your media center and your music and some of your special education as well. Further to the east, on the northeast side, we have our kindergarten wing, where those students would be located. And then south two wings are the 1st through 5th grade classes. We have enough room here on this site to provide a separate pre-K kindergarten focused playground on the northwest side of northeast side of the site, and then older students playground to the northwest side of the site. And then this is just, again, some imagery of what this building could kind of look like in 3D and how it how the spaces would interact with the adjacent site and the playgrounds.
So question 2 is focused at the Barrett site at the high school, and it includes the expansion of some classroom spaces for STEAM and science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics spaces, some additional VOEG spaces, automotive industrial technology spaces that can enhance those programs, and then a student fitness center that would replace existing spaces that are currently undersized. And also included in that question would be adding equipment and furnishings for those spaces. So in order to provide STEAM space, it's important to provide the types of pieces of equipment that help with that sort of education. Technology is a really important part of that process. So there's typically those kinds of classrooms have a lot of technology enabled in them, and lots of opportunities for students to present their work and to be able to write on writable surfaces around the room, and to be able to really dig into finding what their passion is related to those STEAM disciplines. Adding family and consumer science space that would also include some commercial kitchen equipment, that would be a part of this as well. And then the media center, just providing some modifications so that to provide a little bit more flexibility in collaborative areas for small group discussion, for small group activities within that existing space. So that's the existing, or the ballot question number 2. Those are the things that are being addressed. And on the plan here, you can see where those are. We have the blue boxes that are kind of clustered around here. Up in this corner here, we have the addition. The automotive edition is here. The STEAM edition is up here, and then the fitness center edition is down by the gymnasium down in the corner. Also included in this portion of the project is the resurfacing of the tennis courts. So we have the renovation and expansion of those 3 areas, and the little bit of work related to those outdoor courts, and I think also providing a little bit of improvements and expanding 2 parking areas as well. So that's question number 2 on the ballot. Question number 3 on the ballot is to enhance your outdoor athletic fields with baseball, softball complex improvements, and then constructing a track and field complex as well. So that is located to the west of or the east of the existing building, and you can see the track and field complex there with the football field. Also some practice fields down to the south, and then the softball, baseball complex on the west side of the site. And now I'm going to hand it over to Dale, who's going to talk a little bit about tax impact and the project costs.
Thank you, Brian and Tony. One of the concerns all the time is what's this going to cost us? And what we try to do is to lay this out in a few different ways to give you an understanding of what the true cost is of the project. So on the slide on the top portion, we've got the tax liability summary. It's for questions 1, 2, and 3. And it shows the bond amount for each one of those for a total of $47,395. Then if we move to the right, the first shaded square on the left, so upper left, that's for the tax impact for residential homestead. And we used a $100,000 home as our valuation for this illustration. The next slides, we have some other valuations as well. So on the $100,000 home, for question number 1, the annual tax impact would be $134 annually. If you break that out to monthly, it's $11.17 a month. For the high school academic portion, or question number 2, that cost is $18 annually on the $100,000 home, or $1.50 per month. And then with the athletic programs, the projected bond amount is $5,495,000, and that turns out to be $20 annually, or $1.67 a month. So that's the tax impact on a $100,000 home. The shaded rectangle in the upper right, that represents the tax impact on commercial property. So when we look at that question number 1 again, for a $100,000 valuation of commercial property, it's $281 per year, or $23.42 per month. The high school academic portion is $37 annually and $308 per month. And the athletic program, question number 3, that's $41 annually and $3.42 per month. Now moving to the bottom section, we've got the same questions illustrated there, the questions 1, 2, and 3, but the lower left box shows the tax impact on ag homestead property. Now this doesn't include the house, the garage, and 1 acre. Those properties for ag are included in the residential, so it's property above that. So when you're looking at that valuation, we used a valuation of $6,000 per acre for these calculations for both the ag homestead and the non-homestead ag. So for question number one, the cost annually is $2.25 per acre for question number one, or, and I'll just skip the monthly amounts. With the ag property, you typically don't look at the monthly cost. High school academic gets 30 cents per acre, and for the athletic programs, it's 33 cents per acre, or a total of $2.88 per acre on questions 1, 2, and 3 combined. That's tax impact on ag homestead. Sarah will be addressing the tax credit, and that's the primary reason why these costs to the ag property owners are as low as they are on this document or on this spreadsheet. So with the tax impact for ag non-homestead property, for question number one, it's $4.49. On question two, it's 59 cents, and on question three, it's 66 cents, and those are the costs per acre on those properties. The next slides now, these are additional valuations with not the same kind of detail. So what we do is we look at a residential homestead. So a typical home, we've got the $75,000 loans for $500,000. So you see the tax impact on those properties. So at $75,000, the tax impact annually for all three questions is $108 or $9 a month. If you go to $200,000, that tax impact is $433 annually, or $36 per month. And $500,000 property value for all three questions is $1,197. Annual tax impact for $100 per month. The next slide is a commercial industrial. So when you look at this, it's the same thing to follow through again. If you look at a $1 million property, the annual tax on commercial property is $4,610, and the valuation or the tax impact per month is 3 and 4, and it provides you other valuations as well: 100,000, 200, 500, 2.5 million, and 5 million. So it gives you a clear indication of what the tax is for a variety of valuations. And the next one, this slide is kind of combines the agricultural impact, and we show with it 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. The first slide that I explained had the valuation of $6,000 was used. So when you look at this slide, depending upon your valuation, it's got the homestead tax impact per acre and the non-homestead tax per acre. So if we're looking again at that $6,000, it's $2.87 per acre, and $5.75 for the non-homestead. And the bond is set up to be a 20-year bond with if there's a successful vote in November, it would be taxes that would be payable in 2022.
I just want to talk a little bit about the ag tax credit. This is a big deal for us. Property taxes are paid for schools, put a disproportionate share of education funding on our farmers, especially in our large rural district. In 2016, there was a bipartisan bill was introduced to alleviate some of that pressure on the farmers and the landowners. This credit provides tax relief to the farmers while providing schools with resources to fund their building needs. I want to point out right away, what you have in your flyer is not what I have on the screen. We realized after printing that the only information that we got into the flyer, it will match up with your question 1. This calculation is after debt, so this is, or after interest, so this is how much it's going to cost all the way through. So just to show the difference, all you're going to see in your insert is this number. So I'm going to go through some of these numbers. Basically, in our district, if you can look here, without having the ag tax credit, which like I said is new, our farmland owners would be paying $34 million of the tax of the $47 million. This is 73.7% of our tax. That's the tax base. With this credit, that whole savings of 51.2% that comes from this ag tax credit is seen on the farmers where it should be. So with this ag tax credit, the state's going to kick in $24 million. That $24 million of the 47 is going to be paid by the ag tax credit. We will receive that payment from the state. So basically, people that don't understand this, how it works is we have such a large ag base out here that in the city, they have a bunch of houses that pay it. So that's why it's disproportionate out here. So what they're doing is reallocating funds that they have at the state level out to our districts because they know we need the base to fund our buildings. So this is huge because basically, in essence, when you look at this, it takes our taxpayer at our district, our cost in the project from 47 million down to 23 million. So we're getting a $47 million project to $23 million that our taxpayers are paying. So that's a huge deal. The second slide, this showing you this is basically, it's going to have the same impact on these same numbers. So the total, that 58 million you're going to see there, that's showing you how much it's going to cost you over the entire bond, the interest. One thing to point out, you know, when you look at this, if you're buying a house, are you budgeting for how much you're paying for the house? Or are you looking at how much you're going to pay for the house after you add the interest to it? So we just wanted to put a comparison on here, basically because, like I said, we didn't have all the slides in there that we wanted to. But the main point is this ag tax credit is huge for our district, and it's going to pay 51% of our costs, and they will not fall on our taxpayers.
Is there a time limit on that?
Oh, so right now, so this credit started a few years back. Currently, how it will impact our bond is at 60% starting at taxes payable in 2022, and then it's 70% indefinitely starting 2023. So the impact that we have on here is calculated in there, so the calculation has those numbers already impacted. Some of you that are farmers might already see a tax credit because we have small amounts bonded because this was a retroactive credit, but you'll see a classroom credit on your property tax statement currently for some old bond money. So you can already see it show up there. So it'll show up as here's how much your tax is, and then you'll get a 60% credit on your property tax statement for the first year, and then a 70% thereafter. Okay, that's all I know.
Thank you, Sarah. And the slide that's shown here came from Baker Tilly, our financial advisor. And it shows interest rates as they've changed from 2016 through August 19th of 2021. So we look at that time frame, and on the lower right-hand side, if you look at that red line, that's the GO bonds, that's the government obligation bonds that we'd be selling. Their projection for this project will be a 2.14% bond rate. Now, if you back up to the highest point there, that highest point was at 8/19/2018, where it was about 4.5%. So right now, we see historically low interest rates, hovering right down to that 2% rate. So it's an advantage right now for us to have a project to go forward at this time. And then Michelle, if you want to come up and give our summary?
Sure. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, voting will be conducted by mail-in ballots. Ballots need to be mailed by no later than October 14th. Our official election day is November 2nd, but October 14th is the date that you want to have in the back of your mind. Verify your online voter registration address ASAP. You can do that with the URL that we have listed here. Names and addresses from the state database are what is used to mail out the ballots. Election questions, you can mail to the district office or to the email address that's listed here. And as I mentioned at the beginning, all three questions are individual. You can vote for one, you can vote for two, you can vote for all three, but they're not contingent upon each other. Okay. So that concludes the information that we wanted to share tonight. And I think what we'll do is move into the question-answer portion of our meeting. Again, if you have questions and you haven't submitted them yet, there's still plenty of time. But
I think what we want to do right now is collect the questions that you have so far, so we'll pick those up. If anyone needs additional cards or pencils, let us know. Anyone else need cards?
Thank you.
write, if you have questions, we appreciate you writing one question per card. And as she said, you can put the number of the ballot, a question under, that's helpful. What Gail and I are doing is that we're grouping like questions together to ensure that all questions can be addressed. So that if some are the same, then that we won't repeat two questions that are exactly the same. Now, civility and respect are key to a successful evening of getting questions asked and questions answered. And so that we would ask you to listen to the responses, and then if you have a question, to write it down, and then we'll ask. And the question should be about the ballot questions. We won't read a question that is a personal attack on a school board member, a school staff, or another community member, okay? So just as kind of a matter of civility and respect. If you have questions that come up as you're listening, I would ask that you just raise that up, and would the school board members kind of watch for that, and then just bring them over to the table, and then we'll get those together. I just have one question that I just want a clarification on. What was that? Oh, here it is. And it's just the title of I think a business. Okay. Any other questions at this time? And what we'll do, we'll ask the questions, and then whoever is the most appropriate person, I would ask that you would respond. If at any time you can't hear an answer, I think everyone's been speaking loudly, so hopefully you've been able to hear them, but if it should come that you can't hear, just raise your hand, and then we'll make sure that you will raise our voice level a little bit, okay? All right. So we're going to start out. The first question is, how many students in Hoffman, K through 5? And they ask that you show the slide because they missed it if it's possible to do that.
I'm not sure which slide.
That one.
Thank you. I appreciate your directions. So within a 1 mile radius, you have 72 students with Hoffman concentric there. Within a 7 mile radius, it's 140 students. And when we look at a 10 mile radius, it's 178 students. Can you go back to that? Okay. So within a 1 mile of Kensington, there's 19 students. Within 7 miles, 129, and within 10 miles, 145.
Right? The next question. Would the new elementary Hoffman site house all pre-K through 5th grade students? And if so, why is square footage required smaller than the total of Elbow Lake and Kensington? I'll repeat that. Would the new elementary Hoffman site house all pre-K through 5th grade students? And if so, why is the square footage required smaller than the total of Elbow Lake and Kensington?
There are less students at the Hoffman site, Kensington site, than there are at the Elbow Lake site. Part of that is because of the existing infrastructure that's at Elbow Lake. It will be a little bit bigger. But they're historically, if you go back and look at the slides that we looked at multiple times during the previous referendum, historically there's a smaller student population at the South Elementary than there is at the North Elementary. So that's the main reason for the difference in sizes in those sections.
But I think that we're working with some existing infrastructure at North that is there, so the space is going to be utilized, and we wouldn't add it on if we built here, but it's there already, and we're repurposing some existing space there.
That's a great point.
The original meeting that I was talking about, let me just flip back to this slide here. When I was talking about the different phases of the project, and I was talking about community group input, one of the questions that we posed to that group was, for equity, do you feel like building size at both North and South needs to be the same? And that group came back unanimously feeling like, no, we understand that North historically has had more students than South has, and the request was to build what you need, which is where we rolled into the group meeting that I was talking about, bringing in the administrators and teacher and maintenance and all those other people, and really looking space by space and individually isolating each building to identify what it needed.
So is it pre through fifth?
It is pre-K through 5, yes. So building both north and south with the plan that was proposed tonight would bring back 5th grade to that elementary level.
Okay. Here's a question. It says that 37,000 plus square feet for 124 kids. According to MDE, 58,000 square feet is almost 4 times its size. How do you possibly justify that? The state being south less than half full per reopening for COVID. I'm going to repeat that question. I think there's a couple of different comments here. At 37,000 plus square feet for 124 kids, according to MDE, 58,000 square feet is almost 4 times its size. How do you possibly justify that? The state deems south less than half full per reopening for COVID.
I think 37 to 58, I'm not getting where that's 4 times the square footage, because it's not even twice the square footage. But I think that the 58,000 square feet, as I alluded to, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what the question is, the 58,000 square feet was a direct result of what administrators, what teachers felt was needed within the facilities to provide the services, whether it's special ed kids, and needing to be able to provide services there. It's the community professionals that come in and meet with our kids, psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists that work out in the community, having a private space to work with the kiddos, the STEAM space, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and the collaborative projects that you're seeing done at the elementary level, and having a dedicated space so kids aren't having to put these projects together in a hallway or put them together in a classroom and then not have a place that they can put them safely so that those projects that are completed yet can be revisited and built. So I'm not sure that I understood the question, but
I think one part of this is probably the capacity thing and how we set our class sizes in West Central area too, where how many kids can we put in that room and how many as a policy do we put in that room, I think are different. That's maybe part of it.
I mean, being a firefighter myself, and I know this question came up last year, one of the things that I think confused people is what building capacity is versus what the reality of what our rural school district does for class sizes. So if you've got an elevator in a building and it says that maximum capacity is 1,000 square feet, I'm not going to take 20 of you and say, it can hold you, go. Really, the reality of that is that a sufficient amount of people are going to climb on that elevator, use it, and then the next group is going to use it. So I think we have to be really careful about classifying what's an adequate amount of space based off of fire code or what capacity is. So our district's done a really good job of keeping class sizes small, and that's the goal.
The other thing with the FDE recommendations on square footages, they base that for schools with a variety of enrollments. So when we look at the enrollments that we have at South and at North, we'll put currently mid-teens of students in it, but we're going to construct the rooms so we can put as many as 20 to 25 in that room, depending on the grade level. So we're not going to downsize the room and make the room, rather than 850 square feet, we're not going to build it at 600 square feet to meet our students currently. We're going to build it at the size in which we have enrollment growth. We can put more students into that classroom. So that's why you see when you have a low enrollment like we do per section at South and at North, our square footage is going to be higher than what that number is that MDE projects. And also we have special areas where we have a gymnasium serving 150 kids, or a school that has 300 kids in a gymnasium. That gymnasium is still going to be the court size of the basketball court and some room on the side. So when you look at numbers and proportionately, we're proportionally bigger per student. But we need to build those spaces to accommodate the students in the gymnasium or the students in the STEAM room, and we're adding a flex room at each site as well. So I think that kind of fits along with Michelle and Sarah. And I don't know, Brian, Tony, if you have anything else, or
And I think that's a good explanation of class sizes as it relates to building square footage. There's certain things that you have in any school that a school with 150 kids and a school with 350 kids both need, and they both need cafeteria space, they both need kitchen space, they both need support services, they both need administrative space, they both need gymnasiums. So I think when you're dealing with smaller schools like this, and you're dealing with rural schools, there's a certain level of expectation that the public has for things that are in school, and those don't change. So, and I think that there's nothing within the program that was developed here. The original program, when we first were talking about this, had more than one flex room in each site. We've scaled that back significantly, so now there's just one flex classroom. The reason that's there is so that if you have a section that comes through where there's a section of second grade where you happen to have 60 kids in that section, you can have 3 classes of 20 kids and spread them out as they go through their experience at school. So having that flex classroom is really important, but we've scaled it back significantly.
Here's another question. If 5th grade moves to the north and south, both of them will have 5th grade, what happens with the empty classrooms at the secondary? How much space, square foot, does that free up?
So we currently have 3 sections of 5th grade in the secondary building. This past summer and last spring, we converted a portion of the media center to another classroom space. As we have numbers come through our building, we're going to be in a position in which 3 sections of 6th grade or 7th grade and 8th grade may not be sufficient for us. What that does is it provides us with an opportunity for 3 rooms for other use within that building. So, a lot of our conversations have been about what's happening in the elementary buildings and why are we addressing them. These questions impact the secondary school by differently, but with the same level or degree of need. So right now, we don't have any extra space. For our vocational agriculture program, we took an area that had been used as a storage room or large meeting room. We turned that into a second classroom. So now within our VOAG area, we have 2 classrooms, and one of them is quite small size. So the building, built in 1995, was designed extremely well, but student-wise, we're growing out of that. We're adding curriculum, we're adding classes, and we will utilize those spaces for other classrooms and potentially expanded curriculum.
These are kind of just some clarification questions as well. How many students will the new south building hold?
How many students will it hold? I think I defer to what I was alluding to before, and I have the floor plan pulled up here. Historically, we've had 2 sections typically that come through per grade. Occasionally 3 sections. Sometimes that's because a larger classroom needs to be split up because there's more special education needs in there. Sometimes it's because of an influx of kids that came in a particular grade level. But as far as what South Elementary can hold, it can hold 2 sections per grade level and has 1 flex classroom for that influx. Now, if I remember the numbers correctly, in the 6 years I've been on the board, enrollment's grown over 100 students. So if we continue to have an influx of enrollment that comes in, we only have that 1 classroom at South to work with, and we have is it 2 classrooms at North, correct? 2 classrooms at North. The other determining factor for location in moving the South Elementary from Kensington to Hoffman is it creates a 7-mile, 7-mile, 7-mile distance between our 3 schools. So if we have an influx on the south end, we continue to see enrollment grow there, and we have families that are between the Hoffman and the Barrett area, and they have a desire to enroll their kid at North Elementary, we have an efficiency there in being able to share between the elementary schools. That's parent choice, parent option, but it's something that we would be able to offer depending on what our enrollment was doing in the 2 different buildings, and vice versa. Same with Elbow Lake. If we see a huge influx of students there, between Elbow Lake and Barrett, we have the ability to offer Hoffman as our second elementary campus. Yep, Maya?
I was just going to see if Brian could just touch on how the wings were built to add on to if that were needed.
Sure.
Or Tony.
Yeah. The building is set up so that you could add on to the end of the wings if you needed to add additional classrooms down the road. But I think the point that both Michelle and Ms. Roby have made is that the classroom spaces that we have here are designed because of limitations that the district puts on class sizes. we've used, in general, we've used 20 kids in a classroom as kind of, and I know that you're typically a little less than that, but that's what we've used as a starting point. These classrooms are sized so they could handle up to 25, but I think with the philosophy that your district has, the preference would be not to go there. So, so you have that capacity kind of built into the plan. There's 2 sections in each grade level, so K through 6, that's a total, or K through 5, I'm sorry, that's a total of 6 classrooms, 6 grade levels, so 12 classrooms in that area. So there's 240 in the capacity at one classroom with 20 students. It obviously goes up if you go to 25 students. So, so anywhere between 225 to probably 275 students, depending on how many students you put in a classroom, could be in the capacity of that school grades K through 5. There's also pre-K in there. So the pre-K adds a few numbers in terms of the numbers of students for capacity for that space, but that's a little bit harder to it's just the one room, and so that's a little bit harder to talk about the number of students, or the smaller number of students that are impacted by pre-K in that sense. So I hope that makes sense.
I think just to add the enrollment, the current enrollment for this right now where we're at, North has 217, that's pre-K through 4, and South has 158, that's pre-K through 4. So mind you, usually our pre-K is smaller numbers before they go into kindergarten, because they kind of go outside the district sometimes where their parents are for daycare or whatever. And mind you, we're going to also be bringing 5th grade in. So those are our numbers as we speak in our buildings right now.
That answered one of the next questions on here, so that was good. And just to clarify, what are the MDE guidelines for the size of an elementary school per student?
The guideline is not necessarily by number of students in the classroom. The recommended size ranges from 850 to 900 square feet, 800 to 900 square feet. Typically, we try to be a little bit higher in that because in an elementary classroom, there's a lot of things that are in an elementary classroom. And so, having a little bit of extra space for the different teaching areas, especially at the younger grades, is really important. We try to be a little bit larger in kindergarten classrooms, so I think the number that we're using for kindergarten is around 1,000 square feet. The number that we're using in this case for an elementary school classroom is about 850 square feet. So, and that's a fairly typical size in terms of just kind of school planning numbers.
Thank you. Okay, and just to kind of move to another issue, not that we might not come back to that, to keep all of your interests in mind. Okay, this is a question on some of the tax issues. And this first one is, will the city of Hoffman residents see a tax increase above or in addition to the bond referendum? Or is the entire cost of the project included in the referendum?
The question was, will there be an additional tax impact on the residents of Hoffman? And there will not be. When you look at the south side of Carolina Street, there's water and sewer power right at that location. So to get it from the street to the school building, that becomes a district expense. So that's part of the projection on the cost, and that falls under line item called site development. So water, sewer, power will not be assessed to the city of Hoffman residents.
When was the last time our school district had a significant tax increase?
Last time our school district, well, the last referendum that we passed was a revoke and renew. It was the same amount, so we didn't see an increase there. Believe it or not, our newest school within the district is the high school, which is 25 years old. And that bond just completed last year.
Recently.
We'll say recently, within the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, it would have been in 2013, I believe. It actually fell off the old bond.
Run together. So, I mean, if you think about there's no more tax obligation for the secondary school, I guess I'm not sure what to answer as far as when it increased last. We haven't seen an increase in several years.
Okay. Then the question is related to the building at South, if it's in Hoffman. Does the city of Hoffman have the water and sewer capacity to add a school, or will that have to be upgraded?
You know, there was a lengthy discussion when we visited the Hoffman City Council about what the capacity of the town is, and the gentleman here that kind of oversees all those things jokingly but seriously said, we could house a hostel here. So the confidence level that the infrastructure within the city of Hoffman can hold this school was positive.
Next question, how do you think the upcoming operating levy will be affected by this referendum passing or not passing? So it's talking about an upcoming operating levy.
I'll take the first part of that, and then I'll repeat the second part. But when we went through our process last year, and at one site on the ballot, we heard from a number of people that if we went to 2 sites and maintained 2 elementary buildings, that they would support the operating levy. So when we're in a situation to do that, we're not expecting that there will be an increase request in the operating levy 2 years from now. And the reason why we would be expecting that is that we've had a balanced budget in the neighborhood of $10 million to $10.5 per year, and we've had small surpluses that might be $200,000 or so, and small deficits. So we've been hovering right at a balanced budget, with the expectation that we're building a school, or potentially building a school in Hoffman, and potentially growing enrollment. That has the very likelihood that operating levy is not going to increase. If any of the board members who have been working on the finance committee would want to address more thoroughly than I did the historical.
I think the only thing is I know that we've had the same 1851 for people for the last two go rounds. I know it was smaller than that before my time. I'm not sure what it was, but obviously this is a discussion we typically don't start addressing until April. So when people ask, well, what's the impact? That's part of our process. We'll start looking at that number in April. But like he said, we have a fund balance, we have a balanced budget, and we're anticipating, not having to move that number.
Well, I think I would explain, so question 2, for example, which we spent a little bit of time on, but question 2 in the expansion of things like in the agricultural area would allow us the opportunity to do something like a tractor restoration and a really large welding project simultaneously. It doesn't take more staff within the department. It's not the increase of what our costs are for those projects. Instead of us playing Tetris in a small space, it gives us the space to do those things simultaneously.
One of the things that was discussed by the board members since the time that I arrived in 2019 was not only talking about the facilities as we're addressing needs right now, but looking into the future. They've talked multiple times about wanting to continue WCA's reputation. Actually, we have WCA become what is referred to as a school that would draw other families to our district. They wanted to be a school district that enticed people to come to move here, or students who have enrolled to the site. So that's what we're doing with questions 2 and 3, and as well as question 1. And was there a second part of that question?
This is about the ag to farm credit. Is the ag to farm credit guaranteed for the life of the bond?
So obviously it's tax law, so it's not something that we can guarantee. Right now it says it's indefinite. We've talked to some legislature, they said it's bipartisan support. So whether we have a changeover in government, there's been a lot of support for this. The information that they gave us was we can't see any school ever passing it with that in there and pulling it away from them. Do you think if someday they needed to balance the budget and they needed to find a credit that they didn't want to give out anymore and maybe stop giving it out? Yeah, we can see that happening. But they can't take basically the reason a bond is going to pass away from somebody who passes a bond.
This is a question, and it says, about the financing. What is the finance to build? Okay. What is the cost to delay? I think is what the question is. What is the finance and building?
So you said,
the cost to delay.
Tony, you can talk a little bit through your experience in other districts. So if it gets kicked down the road and we don't have a solution for building one, regardless of how many facilities that is, 1 or 3 within our district, what is the cost to delay per year typically?
Historically, we use 3 to 4% per year in terms of just general inflation. Currently, the market has done a lot of weird things from the construction side recently here, and I'm sure any of you that are in construction are aware of that, or any of you that have done addition projects or renovations in your home know the challenges that we have with building materials. We see a lot of signs of things starting to relax with that. Related to the wood frame construction, a lot of those numbers have come back to very close to where they were before the pandemic hit. But things like steel and building insulation and mechanical equipment and ductwork, things that are like cold rolled steel, things for steel studs and ductwork and things like that. A lot of those are still up. They've started to come back down, and we've got several projects that are currently in the bid phase right now. We're dealing with those challenges that the market has currently. But I think there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and it's really strange because things that you think might be impacted aren't impacted. Just recently, PVC had a huge spike, and it had nothing to do with COVID. It was completely related to the hurricane. And the area that manufactures PVC piping was hit very hard by the hurricane. So that's had an impact on cost. So there's all sorts of factors out there that drive the construction market, and that's never going to change. And you try to be as nimble as you can and to package things so that you can take advantage of the way local contractors work and local contractors get involved in projects. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to do those challenges as we go forward.
Okay, we're going to move to some questions about current conditions of buildings and the needs for improvement. Okay. So the first one is, please rank in order of importance. There are 3 questions on the ballot: referendum, question 1, question 2, and then question 3, and then next year's operating levy. So, in order of importance, is there an order of importance for the questions?
I'm not sure if there's some other board members maybe that want to chime in here. I think ultimately my answer is they're all important. I mean, you need adequate learning spaces for good learning to happen within the classroom, and you need our operating levy for us to be able to continue to provide the programs that we have today.
Okay. Anything else?
I would just say that the only reason we split them was because we didn't want any one question to take away from another. So hopefully everybody will feel that they're all important and vote yes for all of them. That would be ideal, but we don't want, if you are opposed to sports, we don't want you to not vote for the egg improvements. Or if you are straight egg and you're opposed to the site in Hoffman, we don't want you to not vote for the egg. We'd like you to support that. So they're separate, but they're all equally important, and they all benefit our district and our kids, and it sets us up for a long-term success.
Okay, next question. Please share some serious issues within North, South, and Barrett that are very serious to health and safety.
Oh, I don't know how we want to start that list. I mean, there's improvements across all 3 buildings. Like I said earlier tonight, our newest building within the district is now 25 years old. And you look at the newest parts of Kensington South Elementary, and those are 50 years old. So, I mean, with older buildings comes older systems, and it comes back to that discussion about efficiency and everything from lighting to, running off of old boiler systems that we've been continually trying to piece together, that the older that they get, the parts get harder to find, type of situation. And so, part of it is bringing things to a state where you can encourage, I'm just going to use the word comfortable learning. I did a tour at South Elementary this afternoon, and I walked into the teacher workroom, and I looked at the thermostat, and it was 81 degrees in there. And I sat there going, this is where our teachers do their prep, this is where our teachers sit down for lunch, and it's 81 degrees in this room. It's in the middle of the building, and it's not a great, I would encourage any of you that doesn't remember what it's like not to have air conditioning to sit through an 8-hour workday without air and just a fan. There is no shortage of different things that these 3 options addresses within our facilities. Do I have any concerns today that our children are unsafe environment? No. Is there significant improvements that we need to make to give our teacher the tools and resources that they need and give our students a learning space that's comfortable and encourages them using and performing their best work every day? Yes.
Okay, this is a question, a kind of a yes or no, and then a follow-up question. Did Zerber assess the south building?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question on this is related, obviously, is why did UNESCO give options to renovate and expand south if it can't be done?
I can't speak to UNESCO's proposal. What I can tell you is that the determination was made that the cost to renovate that building would exceed 60% of the cost of replacement, and that's the benchmark that the state gives us for recommending replacement versus recommending doing repairs and renovations. The other thing that the South Elementary site has a strike against it is that it's just on such a small piece of property, and there's just not a lot of space there. And so if you were to expand that and provide the space that you need for the programming on that site, the space just isn't there to do it unless you would acquire adjacent property, and our understanding is that there's even limitations to what you could acquire adjacent to that site. So that's why the determination was made by the board to not continue to invest in the Kensington building.
And you just answered the second question that was related to that. Can you please explain or touch again on why remodeling Kensington doesn't make sense fiscally, or is it a recommendations? Just to acknowledge that we aren't reading all of your questions. Okay. Okay, so this is new building use. Will the portion of Elbow Lake North that's renovated match or pair well with the new portion, or will it be just good enough? Will the portion of Elbow Lake North that's renovated match or pair well with the new portion, or will it be just good enough?
Yeah, the intent is always to bring up all the spaces to the same level. We'd be upgrading the mechanical systems to provide the fresh air, heating, cooling. All of the finishes inside would be updated so that it really feels like it's one building rather than not just good enough.
Please explain how the extra space in the new schools would help the special ed students.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, and depending on your level of understanding of what happens in special education, we have, and this is every district, but the needs of kids have significantly increased in some cases. And so I'll use the example of going through the floor plans for North and South. A bathroom within the special ed department for students that are very, very high needs was something that wasn't originally on our radar, and the dean and the principal said that's the space that we need. We have students that have those needs. So, whether it's, and I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, whether it's, the resources internally that we need to be able to meet the needs of our special education kids, or the external professionals that are coming in to meet with our kids. When we're in a situation where we've got limited space, sometimes it's difficult to find a place that really is conducive to working with a student one-on-one. So,
the special ed department was very much involved in probably one of the best meetings that I've ever experienced on the board, in which we had the staff there, we had administration there, we had our building principals we had all our building principals, but the ones that gave us the most input were the ones that are in that building, in these elementary buildings. But our special ed was extremely involved in that design meeting of saying, we need things here, we don't need them here. Thanks for that, but we don't need that. And designing it very much their area to meet their needs of, they don't have adequate right now. And like I said, they were very involved in that meeting, and it was one of the best meetings that I've been at.
Okay, the question is next. Any upgrades to the high school security system, such as the cameras? Will there be any upgrades to the high school security system, such as cameras?
We've identified in the questions to have upgrades at the secondary school as well. Specifically, we haven't identified it, but there's a number of items that aren't extremely costly for us, but improving technology and security at the building certainly falls within the parameters of what we've allocated for funds for security and for upgrades at the secondary school.
For questions, these are all questions. What is the breakdown between building costs and the equipment and supplies? So what's the breakdown between building costs and the equipment and supplies?
At the level of planning that's been done at this point with budgeting and estimates that have been done, typically the number that we carry for equipment, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, and for technology in a school building is around that 4 to 5%. About 3% for FF&E is what we call fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, and then usually 1 to 2% for technology. So we're right in that range of 4 to 5% rolling for the projects for those two items. And we use that as a placeholder. Historically, that's been historically above where those things fall, and usually we can fit within a budget, especially on an elementary school. We shouldn't have any problem fitting within a budget that's established in that way at this early in the revenue stage. And we will get far deeper into that conversation as things move forward.
Okay, will this stay in school busing with the school in Hoffman?
That's a great question. I mean, if you take into consideration, and all I can do is make an assumption, if you take into consideration, let me go back to the numbers here with the circles, because it's helpful to look at things. So if you take into consideration that concentrically around Kensington, we had 19 students within 1 mile that could potentially walk, and you look at Hoffman, and potentially there's 72 students that could walk. Will all of those students walk to school? Couldn't tell you. But does that lessen the amount of transportation that needs to happen if even half of those kids walk to school? Yes.
It also changes the logistics of it, where we're right now busing kids to Kensington, and we're sending a bus back to Kensington, or to Hoffman, then we're sending a bus back to Kensington, and we're sending one to Barrett. So now they'll come to Hoffman and stay in Hoffman, and then there'll be a bus that goes to Barrett. So there is part of that shuttling that will alleviate.
There are 2 questions that are very similar. Can you tell us the positive points if all 3 schools are in Grant County? Would there be an advantage to have all 3 schools in Grant County and not one in Douglas County?
And again, I think all I can do is assume, because we've never had that as a reality within our district. We've never had 3 buildings within just Grant County, but we've got law enforcement presence here tonight that wanted to be in homes, and must have walked right out of the room. I'm pointing to him, he's not here. But while we have a law enforcement presence here, but we had a couple of them, and you know, there's an interest in wanting to make sure that our schools are in safe communities. And you know, I know in speaking with Mr. Combs even before the meeting tonight, and anticipating if there were 3 schools within the district, that, you know, ensuring that there's safety and security that comes with that. So, I mean, don't know if I answered that question or not, but
I think we don't have to have the coordination between community or between the counties if we're all within the county. I think that's just one thing to point out. If there were something we were needing to coordinate, it would just be one county to deal with versus 2.
Thank you. What happens if question number 1 fails on November 2nd? Can the board return to the table to find a cheaper option? What happens if question number 1 fails?
you know, I think there's going to be some really difficult conversations for us to have, because cheaper at what expense would be my question. The word cheaper in particular, I would say, in every single one of us sitting in this room has an individual idea of what quality education looks like. I would say that the plan that was presented tonight is my vision and 6 other people's vision of what quality education looks like. So, at the end of the day, the taxpayers, they go to the ballots, they fill out their ballots, and they present information to us. And I can't speak to what the future is, because I think right now the important part is getting information out. If the vote doesn't pass, then the board's got some work to do. And it's, going to be an even longer road than for some of us it's already been.
With the development of the 3 questions, the discussion the board members had was, what can we do to put our patrons in the district in a position not to be hit with the building bond referendum for the foreseeable, foreseeable future where we're looking 20 to 25 years down the road. So when we do that by addressing questions 1, 2, and 3, we take care of the needs of the district. We put ourselves in a position in which the only times the board members will come back to you for any change would be the potential for an operating levy, because that has to be renewed periodically. And right now you have 5 years at a time, so I expect that would continue. So 5 years to come back again for an operating levy. The thing about that is the board gets authority to levy a specific amount per student. They can drop that down, even if the community passes that $1,500 operating levy per pupil. If the board is doing well financially, the district is doing well financially, they don't need to levy that much. They set the levy every December. But when you talk about a cheaper option, and Michelle stated it pretty succinctly to say cheaper at what cost. If you look to repair areas at north, repair at south, it doesn't just stop with a project or when somebody asks a question about what are the 3 top priorities. If you hit the 3 top priorities, the other pieces don't go away. And you don't extend yourself out 20, 25, or 30 years. When you look at the secondary building in Vera, built in 1995, there hasn't been a real significant dollar amount put into that building. It's been minor maintenance things. The most recent thing was the HVAC system, which was spent just over $1 million was spent over that period of time. So when you put a new facility there, you're eliminating those repair costs. But if you try to repair portions of north or try to repair south, you're going to be in a position in which now you're extending that cost incrementally, and there doesn't get to be an end to it. You never do get that new facility. So it's really a dangerous question to ask and a dangerous one to answer as well, because the board's looked at what is the most fiscally responsible option for the district, and that's what they put on the ballot.
This is a question I think needs a clarification just of what has happened in the past, because there was a possibility that not everyone has been here over the course of the full time this has been discussed. Why has there never been a choice voted on for one school and housing everyone at Barrett, as was the long-term plan when we voted to build there, that Barrett would be a pre-K through 12?
Sure, I think, help me, we've gone to vote twice for a single site option.
2013 and then last year.
So it has been on the ballot, and originally the first time I believe, yes, percentage was only 24% within our district, and the second time around it was only 35%. It still left us with a 15% gap to get to 50%, which is where we really focused a lot of our time, energy, and effort in talking to the public and identifying what is it that they would like for us to do.
And this is, what will happen to the Kensington building?
That's a great question. So something also that was communicated was, please don't leave an elementary school in our district that's not being used to not have a purpose, to be dilapidated, any of the above that you could imagine has happened to some other school districts. So there is funds built into the proposed bond referendum to ensure that that building comes down, and it creates a very nice green space within the middle of Kensington.
And these next questions are about just the voting process itself. So can you hand in a ballot to the courthouse later than October 14th?
Oh, I think, you know what, I actually heard you when you said it, Michelle. I think maybe someone misunderstood. The ballots will be mailed out to you no later than October 14th. Is that the date you have? Yes. I think she said it backwards.
I said it backwards, I apologize.
I didn't process it fully until you just said it. So that is when the ballots are expected to be mailed to you. And you can hand deliver, but you have to hand deliver them to the school. That is the only place you can hand deliver them to.
Can they vote? Where can you vote early?
You can request absentee ballots now the same. All voting has to happen at the school because we're the only thing on the ballot November 2nd. There's nothing else on the ballot. So we have to facilitate it. We talked about this in session.
Okay. Then okay, there's some questions about addressing the vote. There's a controversy of allowing the superintendent and school board members collecting and counting votes.
School board members, okay, so right now we have not even appointed election judges at this point. I, as a school board clerk, will be involved because I have to be. There has to be a clerk involved in an election, and because there is no other elections happening right now, I, as a school board clerk, have to be part of the election judge team. We have not appointed election judges yet. It will be no school board members aside from myself that are on that committee, and we are looking at getting. I don't think we have them yet, but they have not been appointed. We will appoint them at the October 8th meeting. I don't know what the names are.
My administrative assistant has gotten lists of people who served as judges within our school district, and she's contacted them, and she has commitments from, I believe it's 4 right now, to be our election judges. None of them are board members. So I believe that answers.
And they're spread out throughout the community?
Yes.
Okay, there are just some clarification questions. And the one is, why aren't the questions written in the brochure as they will appear on the ballot?
So in the brochure, we wanted to provide some of the most pertinent information that people would need. We also have made reference to our website, and we have information available there as well. To print out the questions as they appear on the ballot would take up much more space. We thought we wanted to condense it in a format that was easy to read and provided a hit or listing of a lot of different areas.
I'm going to ask a clarifying question, maybe that was presented in the presentation. Now, where can people go on, how do they get to it on the school website?
If you go to isd234.org, and if you get to that site, there's a tab there that says referendum. And if you go to that tab and click on it, it will take you to a listing of a number of different things that you can access at that point. So it's isd234.org.
I believe that resolution is also posted on that. So seeing exactly what those questions are that are going to be on the ballot, that is also included in that list of items you can look at.
If you wouldn't have been easier just to add 2 more pages and everybody can read it. And once you have to go to the website, there's a lot of residents that don't have computers.
It'll also be on the ballot that you get in the mail, so the questions will be on there.
I understand that, but people would like to know now.
I think on the school handouts, it was included exactly how it was going to do that.
Okay, then there is a question about this presentation. Is this presentation available on the web, or will it be?
The slide presentation that we have right now, we can place that on the website. We just haven't finalized today, so it's not there yet. It can be on tomorrow. We're also making a recording of the presentation tonight, so it's our intent to put that recording on the website as well.
I think just to point out too, if you guys didn't catch that before, I don't know if we said it, go and watch the informational video that's on the website as well. Because that's all in addition to what we presented tonight.
Are there any other questions that people have written that haven't been brought up here yet? If not, I will also ask a question. If people have questions, ask her tonight after they go sort through all this and reflect on it. How do they get that question asked?
Great question. So questions at any point in time can be sent to questions@isd2342.org. With that, I want to thank Deb and Gail again for volunteering their time to be here tonight, and for Tony and Brian for everyone collaboratively being here tonight and being able to answer all the questions.